chapter 19. Moreover, take you up a lamentation for the princes of Israel, and say, How was your mother a lioness? Among lions she couched, in the midst of the young lions she reared her whelps. And she brought up one of her whelps. He became a young lion, and he learned to catch the prey. He devoured men. Then the nations assembled against him. He was taken in their pit, and they brought him with hooks unto the land of Egypt. Now when she saw that, she was disappointed, and her hope was lost. Then she took another of her whelps, and made him a young lion. And he went up and down among the lions. He became a young lion, and he learned to catch the prey. He devoured men. And he knew their castles, and he laid waste their cities, and the land was desolate, and the fullness thereof, because of the noise of his roaring. Then the nations cried out against him on every side from the provinces, and they spread their net over him. He was taken in their pit. And they put him in a cage with hooks, and brought him to the king of Babylon, that they might bring him into strongholds, so that his voice should no more be heard upon the mountains of Israel. Your mother was like a vine in your likeness, planted by the waters. She was fruitful and full of branches by reason of many waters. And she had strong rods to be scepters for them that bore rule. And her stature was exalted among the thick branches. And she was seen in her height with the multitude of her tendrils. But she was plucked up in fury. She was cast down to the ground, and the east wind dried up her fruit. Her strong rods were broken off and withered. The fire consumed her, and now she is planted in the wilderness, a dry and thirsty ground, and fire is gone out of the rod of her branches. It hath devoured her fruit, so that there is in her no strong rod to be a scepter to rule. This is a lamentation, and it was for a lamentation. All right, let's go back up to verse 1. And we remember last chapter, yesterday, we was talking about this as like the Father, like the Son, this premonition that everyone has, that the Son is going to be just like his Father, and we're talking about the next generation going to be just like this generation. It's already assumed, and they've actually set everything in order based on that premises. But we're going to find out. See, God has a way of working this thing out. God has a way of changing this all around. We'll remember when they was coming, and we're going to get reminded of this, that God said, don't do like your fathers and mothers, but listen to me. And that's basically what we're coming back to, see, because it's just a circle that keeps going around. And we're going to pick this up in verse 1. Moreover, take you up a lamentation for the princes of Israel. And this adding to, in addition to what we was talking about yesterday, take up this lamentation for the princes of Israel. And Israel, once again, those that contend with the mighty one, those that God has scattered out in all the earth because of their disobedience, because they don't listen to the law of God. We'll find out they're scattered out everywhere. These princes are the rulers. These princes are the ones that was set in authority, and this we're going to represent the sons of the king. Verse 2, and say, How is your mother, a lioness among lions? She couched in the midst of the young lions, and she reared her whelps. How was your mother a lioness? Your mother is the one you're born from. She is basically the understanding in which you came from. How is she like a lioness? How is she like this that tears and rips to feed her whelps among the lions? Among the lions she couched, so she was hidden there among the beasts, even these beasts of the field who wait for their prey. In the midst of the young lions she reared her whelps, and these are her young. And in the midst of the young lions. So this is what the young lions, they would grow up and see what these young lions do. And what the young lion does is the young lion, having no understanding why it's hunting, practicing its hunting skills, it just rips and tears and kills or maims and leaves it lay and moves on. Because, see, it didn't kill to eat, it killed to be killing, to practice it. 3. And she brought up one of her whelps. He became a young lion, and he learned to catch the prey. He devoured men. And this young whelp, this one she raised up, this understanding even that was brought up, it became a young lion, even this that rips and tears. And we're going to find out it's the judgment of God. That's what that lion, God always is in, that lion that tears, that rips and destroys. God even watching over as a young lion. This is the representation of how it works. He's using it for this purpose. And he learned to catch the prey. He devoured men, and we'll find out these were the souls of men that they did devour, and they ruled over and used them to do their work. 4. The nations assembled against him, and he was taken in their pit, and they brought him with hooks unto the land of Egypt. And the nations assembled against him. In other words, they come against this understanding. They come against it and took it. They took it in a trap. They took it into the pit, and their pit was the holes. Their pit was idolatry. Their pit was the abominations that God had given them in the beginning to rule over them, which he had not given Israel. And they brought them with hooks, and these hooks are pointed objects, sharp and pointed, into the land of Egypt. The land of Egypt is always that land of enclosures. It's what it stands for. It's a land of holes and pits and snares and traps, and the land of enclosures. It's where men bind you up in your understanding. 5. Now when she saw that, she was disappointed, and her hope was lost. Then she took another of her whelps, and made him a young lion. So when she saw that this one, even this one that was carried off and taken away into the land of enclosures, this understanding was she took another one of her whelps, another one of her young lions, and made him a young lion, this which is judgment in the earth, this which tears and rips and destroys, having no understanding of what it's hunting or what it's doing. 6. And he went up and down among the lions, and he became a young lion, and he learned to catch the prey. He devoured men, and so it was done. The mother, once this understanding once again, had taught the young whelp how to hunt the souls of men, and how to be this young lion that rips and tears and leaves it to lay. 7. And he knew their castles, and he laid waste their cities, and the land was desolate, and the fullness thereof, because of the noise of his roaring. And he knew where they lived. Basically, he knew the castles, and he knew their cities, these places that had guards, and their mighty places they had built. And he laid these places waste, and he went in destroying, and all the fullness thereof was taken away, and the land was desolate. He destroyed, he was killing and destroying in all the land, and this was the noise of his roaring. 8. Then the nations cried out against him on every side from the provinces, and they spread their net over him, and he was taken in their pit. So once again these nations, they cry out because of this roaring, this destruction that the young lion, this young whelp is doing. And they spread their net, they spread their trap over him, and he was taken into their pit, once again into this idolatry, into this pit, into this destruction. 9. And they put him in a cage with hooks, once again with pointed things. And this cage represents they had him surrounded with bars. They had encaged him and closed him in, and they brought him to the king of Babylon, even that king of confusion, that he might bring him into the strongholds. And these strongholds was these places that would hold the young lion, so that his voice should no more be heard upon the mountains of Israel, because he had done mighty damage. And we'll see where he was doing the damage was on the mountains of Israel, these high places of Israel, all these high places of those that contend with God, the mighty one, and all those that go against his word. 10. We're going to change. We're going to use another similitude. That's a similitude of for those that hunt the souls of men, even those that 10. Your mother was like a vine in your likeness, planted by the waters. She was fruitful and full of branches by reason of many waters. And your mother, once again, this one you come from, this your understanding even, which you was born from, and this is the premonition. It kind of means how you was brought up, was like a vine, and we remember this vine, this geffen, that means it bends through the forest, it goes up. It was used to strangle down the trees. In your likeness. Now, this in your likeness, this likeness, in King James may be translated as blood. That is the likeness is pretty much a poor translation. This blood is a very, very poor translation, because what this means is it's a word it's kind of a combination word. It's a very short word. The word is dam, and what it means is a ruddy quietness, kind of a quietness in your being red and being quiet. And this is embarrassment. This is your embarrassment. And it's even that makes you dumb. You've shut up your mouth and you're sitting there in your embarrassment, because she was fruitful and full of branches by reason of many waters. And these many waters represent these much understandings, because see this, that she did become fruitful and full of branches, having many branches. These branches represent, it's a limb. This branch can be looked at two different ways. This branch is a branch of offspring that goes this way and goes that way. This branch is a branch of understandings that goes this way and goes that way. And that's what we're talking about, is that fruitful branches of understandings because of many waters. And these is the multitudes of people that it came into the understandings. Just same thing that happened to all the nations that were before. 11. And she had strong rods to be scepters for them that bore rule, and her stature was exalted among the thick branches, and she was seen in her height with the multitude of her tendrils. In this multitude of her tendrils, she had many of tendrils. That's those things that latch on, that make it solid, that sticks it to whatever the vine attaches to as it climbs up in the forest. She had strong rods, and these rods represent these little branches that come out off of the main vine, that go out, that could be used for scepters. That was good for scepters. They were strong enough to be used even for a scepter, that which bears rule. And these are many understandings that go forth. Her stature was exalted among the thick branches, and she went up even among the forest, and she was seen in her height with the multitude. And we'll see. Now, this is exactly what happens. See, this vine that grows forth, it grows up, and God's using it the whole time as an example, see, as an example. It grows up in the forest and has big branches. It's mighty. It's exalted even up into the mighty, greatest heights of the forest. 12. But she was plucked up in fury. She was cast down to the ground, and the east wind dried up her fruit. Her strong rods were broken off and withered, and the fire consumed her. And she was plucked up in fury. Something grabbed her by the base, by the roots, and plucked it up, and she was cast to the ground. This force that was able to just rip this vine up out of the ground and cast it to the earth, cast it down to the ground, because, see, God making an example. See, God has the ability to do these things. And the east wind dried up her fruit. This east wind is going to be that which comes in the enlightenment, as even this understanding. We'll find out it's always been the law of God. It's going to be the judgment of God from the law. And her strong rods, even these things that was good for rule, even all these, was broken off and withered, and the fire consumed her. And she was burned up, see, by the judgments of God. These strong rods, these rods, these branches, even that look like they could be used for rule, we'll see, because all the while this is that vine that God is using for an example. 13, and now she is planted in the wilderness, in a dry and thirsty ground. And God took it, and that's what he's using. This is a similitude, this vine, this one he's using for an example, and planted it in the wilderness. This is the place where the words drive out. This is the wilderness. This is the place that Israel had to come through the first time, in a dry and thirsty ground, even in a wilderness where there is no understanding of God. See, that's the dry and this thirsty ground where they do thirst in the flesh for the Word of God. 14, and fire is gone out of the rod of her branches. It hath devoured her fruit, so that there is in her no strong rod to be a scepter to rule. This is a lamentation, and it was for a lamentation. And the fire, this judgment of God, that has gone out of the rod of her branches. And this rod is that rule, that one that was used for rule. We're going to find out this is the strength, this is the understandings, the teachings that understanding had, that mother. See, that understanding, it was, we're going to find out, it was used as an example because the judgment's gone out of the rod and her branches. It hath devoured her fruit. This fruit is that which she would bear to bring forth the seed, and so that there is no strong rod to be a scepter to rule. And her branches are burned away and destroyed, and all the fruits cast on the fire. This is a lamentation, and it was for a lamentation. It was a lamentation at that time, and it's a lamentation at this time. It was for a lamentation at that time, and it was for a lamentation at this time. And this lamentation is a mournful expression. And that's what this is. It's a mournful expression, God crying out, saying, turn and return. Let's move to chapter 20.